If you do it strategically and thoughtfully, podcast interview marketing is a very powerful tool for expanding your orbit because you're already leveraging the host's audience. Because dedicated listeners to a podcast are going to trust that that host has vetted and researched this guest that they're bringing onto the show. So that host's entire audience, they've already got one foot in the door for you. It's pretty inherent right there. And as long as, what you're saying is meaningful to them, you've pretty much got them hooked. So you're not only appealing to your own built-in audience, for as big as your own built-in existing audience is, there's no telling how much larger the people who just don't even know they need you yet are. So that's a major thing.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. Appreciate, as always, you joining in today. We do have another amazing guest. Her name is Chloe Williamson, and she's the owner of Interview Valet, and she's been such a big part of my life as far as boosting this particular podcast by throwing me so many wonderful guests. And basically, as you can tell, Interview Valet is a wonderful resource for getting health coaches and just all podcasters in general connected with awesome guests. And as you know, I'm so passionate about podcast guesting that it's just really something that's in line with what I believe in, and she really does a wonderful job in doing it. She jumps in and explains just the ins and outs of it, and especially how we are able to really use that to leverage our businesses and grow our client base. So really appreciate that from her. As always, please leave a rating and review on iTunes so I can continue to get wonderful guests like Chloe on the show. Let's jump into it. Hey, Chloe, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am great. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, of course, for hooking my show up over the years. You've been wonderful to work with. I give you a lot of credit for helping me get great guests on the podcast. So I wanted to say that on the air for sure, just to acknowledge you and everything that you do. So I want the audience to get to know you a little bit. So if you could get into your origin story a little bit and tell us a little bit about, your love of podcasting.
Oh, yeah. So I work with Interview Valet. We are a white glove service podcast interview marketing agency. We work with entrepreneurs, business owners, plenty of different people over plenty of different disciplines and industries. And I personally work very closely with health and wellness practitioners, such as physicians, clinicians, and health coaches. And I craft strategic and thoughtful podcast interview marketing campaigns that help these healthcare professionals get in front of the right audience and reach their goals. And I love what I do. I live in America, and I'm certainly not about to get political here, but it's no secret that in America, healthcare is not very accessible to everybody. So there are a lot of people who are very reliant on alternative avenues of healthcare, such as the disciplines that certified health coaches offer. And even me personally, I attribute a lot of my health-related triumphs to the expertise of people outside of the traditional scope of healthcare. So to be able to match these healthcare professionals with the audience of people who really need them is very meaningful to me. And it seems like people are more unhealthy now than they ever have been. And I'm not even just talking about physical health, even mental health, spiritual health, emotional health. Every sector seems to have its own bout of crises these days. And everybody needs help from somewhere. And again, to connect the professionals that serve those people with the people that need them is worth its weight in gold to me. I love doing it.
No, and I thank you for being out there, helping us out, getting the word out, spreading just information. Like you said, it's just really awesome to connect. And you're not lying when you say that this country specifically, I hear Canada's not doing as good as it used to be either. Just getting, oh man, it's tough, and there's a lot of factors that I'm sure contribute to that. But there are people out there who are obviously trying to make the world a better place and get different information out there to help people. So yeah, thank you for participating in that. I guess one of the big questions that I had because of your expertise. Are you a marketer? Like, how did you get into like the business acumen portion of it? And how did you become so knowledgeable that you're able to actually fit people and actually start campaigns for people so that their message can get through what can be considered a saturated market?
Many different answers to that. Marketer, yeah, if you want to put an umbrella term on it, for sure. I like to think of myself as a strategist because there's a lot of data and a lot of research that goes into what I do. And even more importantly, there's a lot of partnerships. So I craft campaigns for the people I work with, but it relies a lot on what they're willing to give me and what I have to work with them that can make the difference of what works and what doesn't. And I find people have a hard time. This is going to seem silly, but walk with me here. People have a hard time putting themselves in a box, but also not seeing themselves outside of the box. People tend to not know what they can say about themselves without seeming braggy. And a pretty simple part of my job is helping them understand, like, well, no, like you kind of have to brag. That's the whole reason we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to believe in the fact that you can help people. And a lot of people kind of on the surface don't believe that they can make a difference, or that they, at the very least, don't stand out amongst the other people that do exactly what they do. And if you're one of those people, if you're listening and you're one of those people, I really urge you, first of all, you wouldn't have even gotten the certification or started this whole venture if you didn't think that you could help somebody. So it could be really deep down in there, but there is something in there that you know that you can do it. So you have to tap into that belief. And if that's too hard for you, that's where people like me come in. You know, I can look at something a little bit more objectively than you can. People tend to be too close to what they're doing. So an expert like me can kind of help them back up or zoom in, depending on what their unique need for finding their audience is. And we can go from there. I can also help on the back end of everything too. Promotion is a really important aspect a lot of people don't think about, especially in healthcare spaces, where I do find a lot of people don't value social media, which is fine. Social media is not for everybody. I find a pretty decent mix of people who are all in on it or people who want absolutely nothing to do with it. And a lot of people think if they want nothing to do with it, there's nothing to be done with digital marketing, so to speak, like podcast interview marketing. And I'm here to say, no, that's not true at all. If you benefit more from an organic community, whether that be virtual or not, there is still so much you can do with the content that podcast interviewing gives you that you can share in newsletters, your next ad campaign, anything. It doesn't just have to be a numbers game and getting your followers up. If you're talking to a room of 10,000 people and only 9,900 of them, no, I'm sorry. If you're talking to a room of 10,000 people and 9,900 of them don't care what you have to say, you're not really talking to 10,000 people. You're talking to the 100. But if that 100 is your audience, that's where you can build and niche out from that. And that's where we find where your sweet spot is. Because again, there's not a single person out there that doesn't need what you can help them with. There's a non-zero chance that someone out there needs exactly the expertise that you offer, and you just have to get in front of them. You have to make sure that they see you as trustworthy, and that's what I can help people do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you did touch on a couple of things, so I'll probably go back and forth with that answer right there, because I think it was a great answer. I first want to just ask you, you did mention the thing research. I think one of the things that a lot of people who are starting out in any industry lack is that research, right? Like they don't necessarily know who they're talking to, what they're getting into. Do you have specific tools that you utilize to get this data that helps curate the content, curate the audience, or curate just a bigger picture that a person who's just starting out may not have the ability to either access or even, quite frankly, comprehend to the expertise that you could provide?
Absolutely. We license a lot of different databases with many different data points. And I'm talking on a lot of different levels here. We look into audience demographics. We look into geographical locations. We look into trends and topics. And if I'm talking about healthcare specifically, I always try to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the news and otherwise. And again, like I said, there's crises everywhere. So there's a lot to look into these days. But big picture things we do a lot of work on, even smaller, more insular things like audience demographics we look into. And also it helps, we've been doing this for a number of years. I've been doing it for a number of years. I have good relationships. I kind of know what a good opportunity is when I see it. And it is a little hard. That's kind of a non-answer. I understand that. But once you know and feel authoritative in what you can offer and what you can say, you will also begin to kind of see what's going to work for you and what doesn't. And there is a level of experimentation that is going to go into podcast interview marketing, especially if you're brand new to it and certainly don't know exactly what niche you fit into. That's again where I step in. I know this area has worked for people who do what you've done in the past. I know this area probably doesn't. So it's a lot of experimentation. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of creativity. There's also, like I said, a lot of more kind of metaphysical, not metaphysical, but kind of more abstract thinking that goes into it too, that it kind of comes down to the person. Mm-hmm. And that's also something that we can offer too. I might know something you don't know, and you definitely know a lot that I don't know. So that's also why I like to look at it like a partnership. I have no problem telling someone I'm working with if they're in an industry I've never worked with before. I have no problem asking questions and then taking that information and seeing what I can do with it with what I do know.
Mm-hmm. So do you actually, and I'm very familiar with what you've provided with me and this particular podcast in the past. Now, do you start podcasts on behalf of your clients as well? Do you help them put together the podcast itself, or are you more on the just guesting side?
We used to offer a service like this. We had different success rates. It was a bad time for us to start it, quite frankly. So in the past, we focus a lot more on podcast interview marketing for the guest side. We find that is a much more effective strategy. And if you want to start a podcast, I definitely don't think that's a bad idea. If anyone listening wants to do it, definitely try it. I think there is more than enough room for everybody to both be a guest and a host. But if we're looking specifically for guesting, that you're going to get a lot more meaningful value out of what we can offer.
Okay. So talk about that a little bit, because I think that ultimately, and I've had this conversation with a bunch of people who are in a similar space, I think that guesting is totally the place to be, and that's why your service is so valuable. And if you could get into why that's the case, and I just wanted to just put my perspective out there real quick. I think one of the things about guesting that is really cool is that most hosts of a podcast aren't necessarily the one who's going to get the call about a service or an inquiry about them, right? So I've always
Correct.
had way more success on the other side, where I've been a guest on a podcast and has had a ton of opportunities to get clients and such, because I'm more featured as an expert, where when you're the host,
exactly,
you're kind of deferring it. So like I always say nobody calls Joe Rogan up to ask him advice, right? Like it's always
right.
So yeah, if you could speak to that as well.
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, if you do it strategically and thoughtfully, podcast interview marketing is a very powerful tool for expanding your orbit, because you're already leveraging the host's audience, because dedicated listeners to a podcast are going to trust that host has vetted and researched this guest that they're bringing onto the show. So that host's entire audience, they've already got one foot in the door for you. It's pretty inherent right there. And as long as, what you're saying is meaningful to them, you've pretty much got them hooked. So you're not only appealing to your own built-in audience. For as big as your own built-in existing audience is, there's no telling how much larger the people who just don't even know they need you yet are. So that's a major thing. And plus, it's what you do with it on the back end too. Even if there isn't an audience that heard you, if you use the content that you got from that podcast, that person might have heard you, and there you go. I also find a lot of people have to shake limiting beliefs. And I mean, that's a huge blanket statement. Limiting beliefs will hold you back in anything, no matter the context, but it really does matter here. A thing that I encounter a lot is people who don't want to engage with their competitors. And I don't really like to use the word competitors. I don't think there is such a thing, quite frankly. Maybe that's just the bright-eyed marketer in me, but I don't think there is. I think there's more than enough room for everybody. And to hold yourself back from someone because you think like, well, they're already with that person, they're not going to be with me. It's like, well, there you go. I mean, wherever you go, there you are. If you're not even going to put yourself out there, you're not leveraging that audience. Because listen, you don't know how many people in your competitor's audience have been looking for a reason to jump ship for months now. And then they found you and they're like, oh, thank God, finally someone that can help me. Because if you could have the exact same pedigree, credentials, education as another person, y'all could live in the same city, they still don't do what you do because what you do is unique to you and what they do is what unique to them. Even if it's something as simple as like our voices are different. People can be fickle and make decisions based on innocuous things like that. So you have to be willing to put yourself out there and open yourself up to the idea that it's not just this narrow scope, like being on lots of different audiences. Well, you got to be strategic. You can't just throw spaghetti at the wall and expect something to happen. You have to have intention behind it, but experimenting and testing different audiences, as long as you trust that host, is a really brilliant way to try and expand your orbit.
Right, right. And what's interesting that while you were speaking, it just popped in my head. It's funny that people always are competitive in getting a client, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many other valuable components to
Oh, yeah.
that the client is maybe the least valuable at it at the end of the day. And that's one of the things that I try to put out to health coaches is that just your name getting out there, the exposure, the relationships that you establish with people in like the green room, like as we call it, is invaluable, and that could lead to other opportunities as well. So it's like don't get too caught up in that competitive nature where you think that that's all you're doing is trying to get clients. There's so many more nuggets out there that
Oh,
are
yeah.
up for grabs.
Especially it's education too. I find a lot of the healthcare professionals, traditional or otherwise, that I work with have a really big focus on education because, like I said, healthcare is not always accessible, especially the information. There's so much information out there, and it's really hard to know what's trustworthy and what's not. And podcast interviews provide a really unique platform for you to kind of set the difference there, because this metaphor might be a bit harsh, but I think a lot of health and wellness practitioners are very cognizant of not appearing like they sell snake oil.
Mm.
And if I were to put that maybe more kindly, I would say they want to appear credible, they want to appear knowledgeable, and they want to appear trustworthy. And I mean, simply put, it's just a lot easier to establish credibility with a 45-minute interview than it is with a static ad or a 30-second commercial. I mean, how many big shot attorneys can get themselves on a billboard crossing their arms and saying, injured, come see me? And then who are they compared to the 5,000 other big shot attorneys you see on your drive to work? It doesn't necessarily mean anything. But a 45-minute interview could provide a wealth of knowledge. You know, counterintuitive. If you're walking the walk in your business every day, you should also be able to talk the talk. And an interview provides a really good opportunity to do that. And 45 minutes, that's more time than you get with your doctor a lot of the times. I can't tell you how many doctor's appointments where it was like maybe 10 minutes before the doctor had to go to the next person. And I didn't walk out of there feeling enlightened or educated, or I usually had more questions than I had walking in. Whereas I've walked away from a 30-minute interview I've listened to and I've learned so much. And there's this new person I'm enthralled to learn about because they have the knowledge that I either have been looking for and haven't been able to find accurately, or didn't even know I needed in the first place. And now I know that, wow, look at all of this stuff that now I can learn because this expert has proven themselves trustworthy because they were able to talk about it the whole time. It wasn't just a little billboard.
Right, right, right. And I think especially when health coaches are starting out, this is like an actually really good way to bring that out of them, right? Like one of the things
Oh,
is
yeah.
just sitting there and having like a monologue and just talking, talking, talking. When you're a guest on someone else's show, they generally have the ability to drag the best out of you. And that's where you
Yes.
really actually shine. So that's one of the things that I've noticed as well.
Especially because it's a conversation. Like, yes, it's an interview, but at its core, it's a conversation between two people. And that is another great way to establish trust because listeners, even though I know realistically there are, thousands of other people listening to this interview, I'm the only one right here listening to it. So I feel like I'm getting this kind of special peek into these two experts that I already respect because I listened to this host, and this one, like I said, I got one foot in the door with respecting because my host trusts them. So why shouldn't I listen to them? And then I walk away with a lot of meaningful information.
No, very true, very true. So, what is like the ideal podcast structure that you like? Is strictly guesting? And I guess it's kind of a loaded question because one of the things that often come up are like, I think this is the easiest way to create content by far because
Oh, yeah.
You're my content. It's that's as
Hmm.
simple as that. So it goes both ways. So it's very beneficial to both of us because you can repurpose it on your end, I can repurpose it on my end. Have you ever noticed anything as far as your research is when concerning length of a podcast, um, seasons? I see people
Sure.
labeling episodes. It's just curious, just being in the field. Do you see anything that may be more beneficial to utilize in other kind of formats?
Absolutely. I would say, first off, recognize your own kind of interviewing style. Even if you've never done interviews before, think about what you would prefer and what you wouldn't. Are you looking for more of a straightforward educational meeting of the minds? Are you looking for more of a conversational sort of approach? Because that's more research to do. Listen to a few episodes of a podcast you think might be a good fit for you. You might learn that host interview style is not going to help you move the needle and get the word out there that you want to. So that's a really good place to start. I would also look for even more, again, like more kind of nitty gritty stuff. Does the host put the guest's name in the description and in the title? If they don't do either, that's probably not going to generate the best results for you just because it's not always going to be searchable.
Mhm.
Even if the interview maybe didn't go the way you wanted, let's say you did it, you don't feel great about it. If you're new to interviewing, by the way, you're not going to like your first interview. That's just kind of the way it goes. So yeah, be easy on yourself. But even if you didn't like it, as we talked about promotion and repurposing, you can still do so much. I mean, like you can just take one sentence out of that and post it a million times. Other than scientific breakthroughs that maybe completely debunk whatever you're talking about, which is probably not going to happen, the information that you shared in that interview is going to be relevant. So you might as well use it again and again and again. And the same is true for hosts. Hosts have a guest on that they're particularly excited about, and they'll reshare that interview like 12 times. And there's nothing wrong with that because if the interview is still meaningful, the information is still meaningful, then it's still meaningful. And of course, they could have gotten new listeners since it was originally posted. So to bring it back isn't a bad idea. I also see hosts. I will say just an inside tip: if anyone listening is a host, if seasons are the way that you do it, just consider that sometimes your podcast will not rank if there hasn't been an upload in 30 days. So maybe consider replay episodes. That's a tactic I see a lot where they'll just repost old episodes, like I said. It could be a tactic if you want to look at it like a tactic. I think it's just further sharing of information that is still relevant.
Mhm.
So if you want to do seasons, I don't think that's a bad thing. Some people really don't like the idea of it. They think they got to keep it going, 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 and going. But consider what you're actually putting out there, if it's meaningful or if you're just doing it to get the numbers, and then maybe be a little more strategic with it. So strategy goes into everything, whether you're hosting or guesting. If you're intentional with it, you will see differences.
And also, like one of the things I try to tell podcasters who's just starting out, don't get caught up on the statistics early because, like you mentioned, people that your new listeners, just like anything on Netflix, they tend to go back to
Oh yeah.
other episodes, right? It's just that's kind of the way it is. So my first episode is being listened to today, and that's over 200 episodes ago. So it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing that that's actually the case. So it does stay relevant. Speaking of 200 plus episodes, you also have a very unique perspective about just the longevity of podcasts. You
Yes.
have a lot of tips regarding how to keep a podcast evergreen. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, strategy goes into everything. You should enter an interview with an open mind for the conversation to flow naturally because you want to seem authentic, just like a host wants their guest and the content to seem authentic. You can't fake authenticity. You can fine tune it, I suppose, but people will always tell if it's real or not. So I always think you need to prepare, but you need to prepare for unpreparedness as well. Obviously, have the points that you want to make, and by all means, share it with the host if you want to make sure there's something you hit. But be open to the conversation. There might be questions you're not prepared for, and you can take your time with it. You can let a host know, like, let me think about that for a second. It all comes out in editing anyway. That's another magic of podcasting is that it's not a live, unless it's a live interview, you have some room for improvement. And See, I'm messing up right now because I just lost my train of thought, but that's it. That's what it is. But we're talking about repurposing. Like I said, barring major scientific breakthroughs that debunk anything you're talking about, any bit of information you share in an interview can turn into anything. One sentence you say could be an ad campaign. One 30-second response could be a reel that you share across all your social media. One, two question and answer exchange between you and the host could become the format for a blog post or a newsletter or the speech at a seminar that you're going to give. There's just so much you can do. And now that's the beauty of it, is that it's your own unique IP now. You can do with it what you want. And of course, don't edit it in a way that misrepresents you or the host. Be ethical with it like you would with anything. But the options are limitless for what you can do with that. And that is a really important point too. A lot of people think they just have to show up to the interview, do a decent job, and then they sit back and wait. And they think the magic is just going to happen. And it's like, well, no, you have to be intentional on the back end too. You don't just have to know what you're doing to get here. You also have to have a plan for after, because you were on this interview, but like, why should anyone care? Tell us why we should care. And if it comes down to something like a reel or even like a static quote image, if that drums up the excitement to the audience, then they're going to want to tune in. And I also think drumming up excitement, so to speak, is a really good way to do it too. After you record it, you can definitely take advantage of that time between recording it and going live to kind of generate excitement. I would say standard timeline between recording and going live is usually 90 days. Some hosts will pop that thing up there next week. Some will do it in 6 months. It's all different, but continue communication with the host. See if they can give you insight on when they plan on posting it. Talk to the host about promotional things. What are they planning on doing? How can you help them do it? If maybe there's a collaboration you could do, the world is at your fingertips. You have to not be afraid to ask for it and to take up space and tell people why you're the one that they need. And again, that's hard for a lot of people, but it becomes a little easier when you're just talking to someone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, again, I guess the big word that we'll get out of this particular podcast is strategy, right? So at the end of the day, each element of the podcast process has a super big strategy associated with it. So that I definitely get that part. And I guess because we are talking about growing podcasts, of course, and just putting yourself out in front of more people. Any tips on how to do something like that? How do you grow your audience? There is a thought too, especially if you have a specific market that you're dealing with, that the size of the audience doesn't necessarily matter. I've spoken on that a bunch of times as well. But let me get your thoughts on that just overall.
I think it helps to both niche down and niche out. I see very oftentimes we see two different extremes. We see people who come in and they think that not just their ideal avatar, but the beginning and end of their avatar is one particular person who is this many years old and has this many problems and is this, and this. And they're kind of standing in their own way because it's too narrow. Versus we also see people who come in and they say, well, I can help anybody. I don't really care. As long as it's a big show and a lot of people will hear it, I can help anybody. It's fine. And hey, love the confidence. You should, again, I want you to think you can help anybody because perhaps you can, but that's not a strategy. And you kind of have to find a healthy medium. And I think if you're kind of too narrow in your approach, it would really behoove you to open up. Like I said, get a little creative, think outside the box. If you think your ideal avatar or your only avatar is women in their 50s looking for weight loss, maybe we can look at audiences of men, the men who are married to those women who want to be able to help their wives do this, but don't know how to talk to them about it. Maybe you look into the younger generation, people whose parents want to do this, and you look at that. Maybe you want to pivot to consulting in a sense, and you want to help other people help people do that. And maybe you don't want to do it anymore, but you have a lot of expertise you can offer. That's another way you can do it. You have to be kind of creative. And similarly, if you're on the other end and you just want to be in front of anybody and you don't care, well, one, ask yourself why anybody would care. It's kind of harsh, but like, why would they? You have to be able to answer that because, again, you're speaking to a room of 10,000 people. If the majority of them don't care, then you're in the wrong room. You need to go find the right room. So that's when you have to say, okay, I help men. Well, what men? How old are they? What do they work in? What do they look like? What do they do? What do those men listen to? What are, and again, I don't like to use the word competitors. Look at your competitors or your colleagues, your peers in your field. What are they guesting on? What are they listening to? What are people in rates and reviews on message boards, on any kind of social media platform? What are they saying about this show? I love to tell people to check out rates and reviews sometimes. First of all, rates and reviews are not an accurate measure of a podcast's impact. There's a lot of information about that. We don't have to get into it, but they can if you know how to leverage it. Sometimes look at bad reviews. Why are people leaving bad reviews? Is it because this host is doing something that you know you don't do? Well, maybe this audience could become your audience and you need to be on similar shows to try to get them to come over to you. There's opportunity everywhere, room for everybody. You have to be creative. You have to be willing to try things out. Especially if you know for a fact that an audience won't work for you, you're allowed to have boundaries. I'm not saying you should just try anything for the sake of anything. Again, there has to be strategy behind it, but there's usually a lot more opportunity outside of what people think they offer than they're willing to think in the first place. And sometimes it just takes kind of an outside perspective to see that.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree 100%. And I guess to end, and I know we probably could have started with this topic a little bit earlier, but I know that you're also super passionate about like dispelling that myth of saturation. And I guess
Oh,
we've
yeah,
kind of talked about it in relations to competition and such. So talk about it a little bit before we jump off the air, and I'll let the audience get to know all your social media handles and
for
website,
sure.
etc.
Well, I think first off, if you were to ask an insider in any market if their prospective market is oversaturated, they would all say yes. I think everybody would. And in some cases, I'm sure that's true. When it comes to health and wellness, it's just not. I don't think it is. I don't think it's true. I don't want to speak definitively. In my opinion, it's not true. Health and wellness is every single person on the planet is severely affected by their health, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Just because you're healthy now does not mean you will be tomorrow, or maybe you're only healthy because you put a lot of stock into what you do to maintain that. But no one gets out alive. So, like I said earlier, there's not ever going to be a time where there's not someone that would benefit from what you have from what you have to offer. There's just not. Not everybody is interested in finance. Not everybody is interested in passive income. Not everyone is interested in entrepreneurship. Everyone is interested in health, even if they don't know it, because they have to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think like when people think like, oh, there's just no room for me. I can't make a difference. Like, it's almost silly. It's like, well, why would you think that? There's 8 billion people in the world? Of course, someone needs to hear it. These people just don't even know that you're offering what you offer. And maybe once they know it, then that's when you're going to find your people. So I try not to be so flippant, but the idea that there's an oversaturated market, I just don't agree with that. Every single person, living and dead, has had health affect their life day to day overall, and they need help. And if you can provide that help for them, why would you not want to put your voice out there and get in front of those people and tell them why you're the one that can help them?
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you say that. I try to keep harping the 8 billion number. I always that. And it's what's unique is like, I have obviously, I have the other podcast, this podcast Burns Fat.
Yep.
Even if you want to lose weight, there's like 6,000 ways to lose weight in itself.
And 6,000 different reasons. Yeah. Maybe you don't even want to, but you have to. So now I got it. Well, let me tune into this podcast and see if I can figure something out. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a million approaches, a million strategies, and God knows everybody wants to hear that person's story who's actually accomplished whatever they want to accomplish, even
of course.
If, completely opposite of what they're used to. So yeah, I just think the information is just so valuable for people. And I think, I would love to just always chime in to just say that don't think that just your story is your unique story. And, you definitely have the ability to help people. So I thank you for
and
that.
Also, yeah, I mean, if you walked into a doctor's office and he was like, I don't know, man, I just don't think I can be the one to help you. It's like, well, okay, well, then I'm not going to talk to that doctor anymore. Like you have to believe in the fact that there are people out there and you're the one that can save them, basically.
No, absolutely. Ms. Chloe, you've been fantastic. I usually keep it around the 30 to 40 minute mark, and we're right there.
Yep.
You crushed it. So I really appreciate that. So I want to give you an opportunity to, of course, tell the audience all the great stuff you're doing, how to keep in contact with you at your agency. And yeah, any parting advice would be great for the audience as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me so much. If you want to find out more about me and Interview Valet, check out interviewvalet.com/Chloe. That's CHLOE. We have a wealth and a depth of free resources and information available on the website. It's not behind a paywall. We got a ton of stuff. Just go check it out. For listeners of this podcast, additionally, we are currently offering a free audit of live interviews. So if you have been featured on an interview and you would like some data-backed insights into strengths, weaknesses, ways to do better, what you can do to position yourself, we can give you that for free. Just check out my landing page. Similarly, if you are interested in podcast interview marketing and how it can be a powerful tool for you, but you just don't know where to start, book a consultation call with us, also free. We offer that too. And we're at Interview Valet at pretty much all your major social medias. You can find us there. And if I could leave any parting words here, this is a good one. So main goal, determining your goals and your target audience. I think determine your goals first, because some people, if you're just looking to educate and inspire and maybe ROI is a little abstract for you, there's an approach for that. If you're looking for, like you mentioned earlier, if you're looking for clients, you're looking for signups, you're looking for new members, there's an approach for that. If you're just looking for content, if maybe audience engagement is not important to you, you just want the content to update your sizzle reel, come see us. We can help you with that too. There is a strategic approach to all of it. And if you know your goals, that will help you kind of reverse engineer where the audience is and what kind of podcast you're looking for.
Awesome. Awesome. I think those were great points. And thank you so much for sharing. You've been fantastic. As I said earlier, thanks for being on the show. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Omar. Appreciate it.
Likewise.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.